Hello dear, Rose here, writer, director, etc. of this podcast audio drama, welcoming you to the third season of the Wessex dramas The Laodicean. This novel was the last of Thomas Hardy's Novels of Ingenuity trilogy. The story is a gentle romantic comedy set in a rather indecisive heiress's castle. I must warn you, Victorian intrigue, cross-purposes and architecture feature rather heavily in this tale. So throw on a tea gown, put your toes on the fender and tell the butler you are not at home, and let's dive into the drama.
Somerset is doing his drawing. Somerset is asking a footman about if there have been any telegrams. There haven't. Somerset is giving instruction to 3 of his workers. He is in the telegram room and asking the young footman there if there has been any messages. There haven't. Somerset is refereeing a quarrel between 2 of his masons and 3 electrical artisans, elderly ex-peasants. The former masons are outraged and pointing out that the electricians have blithely nailed trailing festoons of wires over the area which they are halfway through plastering. Somerset is anxiously pacing the telegraph room alone when the message arrives from Paula, which he rapidly transcribes.
Settled at given address. Can now attend to building inquiries.
Somerset snatches up a pen and writes,
"Will send particulars. Always the same."
He then picks up the telegraph machine and starts clicking the message out. Somerset then sits back in his chair and sighs. Somerset regards his sketch of the finished front elevation of the castle, smiles and nods to himself. He picks up his letter, which he has just written, and puts it, together with his sketch, into an envelope. Somerset addresses it to Paula Power, care of Hotel Nice, Nice, France. He sits back and chews his lips thoughtfully. Somerset is standing on the outside of the door and just about to close it behind himself when Jenkins calls out and hands him a letter on a salver.
"Mr. Somerset, sir, your post."
"Oh, thank you."
Somerset smiles and takes the letter. He continues on down the steps and across the ward. He reads eagerly.
My dear Mr. Somerset, thank you for your letter and sketch which both showed your work and your intentions. I feel every confidence in you and I'm quite sure the restoration is in good hands. In this opinion, both my uncle and aunt coincide. I am sorry that you are aggrieved about there having been a fortnight before I wrote, but our progress was slow, and I wanted to be settled so as to be able to confirm our arrival. Just one point, though, if I may. Please do not write unless you have something specific to say, and then write any, postscripts, on a separate piece of paper, as my uncle naturally demands a sight of all your work report. Sincerely yours, Paula Power.
Somerset shrugs and looks a bit hopeless.
Separate paper it must be, then.
Somerset is explaining his plans to one of his masons. Somerset is writing a letter to Paula, "My dear Miss Power," with a goofy smile on his face. Somerset is addressing a group of 4 employees and explaining some drawings which he has fastened to the wall. Somerset is pacing anxiously up and down the ante-corridor of his office, through the arch. Somerset is depressedly writing a letter which he then picks up off the desk and walks out of the office with. Somerset walks along the path as the sun just begins to set and reads, quietly muttering parts and then reading portions aloud from the letter which he has just written.
But to speak more solemnly, matters grow very serious with us, Paula. At least with me. And there are times when this restraint is unbearable. Your perhaps tender railleries become, in a letter, cruel sarcasm.
He walks off disconsolately down the path. Somerset is just finishing his breakfast when the maid comes in, nods, and hands him a letter from her pocket. He smiles, nods, and opens it. Somerset reads the letter, semi-mutteringly to himself.
I am most angry with you, George, for being vexed because I will not make you a formal confession. Why should the verbal "I love you" be such a precious phrase? You have discovered my regard for you. What more can you desire? Anyway, my uncle is displeased with my frequent correspondence with you. I don't wish to anger him, as I've only just found a new relative. So, I am writing to ask you only contact me by telegraph while I'm away. There now, don't flush and call me names. Hope ever, and understand that I cannot speak more plainly at this time. Goodbye, Paula.
Somerset goes to his desk and snatches up a pen and paper. He starts to write, and then stops and throws down his pen.
No.
He rolls his eyes and sighs.
Telegram.
He jumps up, dons his scarf, coat and hat, and then dashes from the room. Somerset is sending a telegraph. Somerset is asking a passing maid in the hallway if there has been a telegram. She smiles and says no. Somerset is sending another telegram one early evening. Somerset opens the telegraph room door, sticks his nose in, espies the housekeeper sending a message, and asks if there has been any answer to his own. The housekeeper says no. Somerset is in his office, finishing a letter to Paula.
Then do write, Paula. Or at least telegraph as you proposed. Otherwise I am resolved to take your silence as a signal for discontinuing our avowals, to treat your fair words as wind, and to write to you no more.
Somerset signs his name. He sighs deeply, sadly sits back, and then folds the letter. Somerset is returning back to his inn with a small briefcase in his hand. He walks past Myrtle Villa, where he sees Sir William weeding in his garden.
Good evening, Sir William.
Good evening, sir. Do you return to your quarters?
Yes.
I am much alone these days, and would wish that my daughter would return to hers.
I suppose that she is still enjoying Nice, together with Miss Power.
Yes. She offers to return at the drop of a hat, but, strange to say, I miss my son even more.
Has the regiment moved off, sir?
Sir William gathers up his gloves and trowel prior to returning to the house.
Oh, no. He's gone to join his sister at Nice.
Somerset is aghast.
Nice?
He has some time owing him. I think that he proposes to use this time to his advantage and exercise his skill in gallantry.
Gallantry?
Yes. There are little signs that my son will be returning to Stounsea Castle by dint of marrying its owner.
He nods mysteriously.
Miss Power?
Well, I've got to go in to dinner now, or Millie will complain. Please excuse me, Mr. Somerset. I'm sure your dinner is awaiting you as well.
Yes. Waiting, yes.
Sir William turns away.
Good evening, then.
He walks away.
Good evening.
Somerset walks away, stunned at this news. Somerset is rapidly gathering up plans and shoving them in cupboards. The foreman comes in and closes the door behind him.
You wanted me, sir?
Yes, I just have to pop over to Nice for a week or so. And I need you to keep an eye on Fred, Stan and Theodore. Tell them they're not to row with the electric workers.
I'll certainly keep up with to the mark, sir. You seen Miss Power then, sir?
Yes, I need to discuss some building issues. I've telegraphed her the news of my arrival. I leave tonight.
The foreman nods and tips his cap.
Right then. Don't you worry, Mr. Somerset. There'll be nae gwains on under my watch, and there'll be no one found in a drinky state neither.
Somerset smiles and pats the foreman's shoulder.
Thanks.
The foreman marches out. Somerset sighs and pushes papers around disconsolately on his desk. He then collapses into a chair and stares. Somerset comes into a waiting room, carrying his holdall, where there are another 4 middle-aged and elderly people dressed in black, waiting to catch the train. He sits down. The sign over the door says no spitting. There is the sound of steam trains. Somerset comes into another waiting room, where there are another 4 people also dressed in black and brown. There is also a no spitting sign and the sound of big ships arriving and dockers shouting in the distance. Somerset comes into another waiting room, with 3 ladies dressed in bright jewel colours and big fin de siècle hats. A gentleman is using a long cigarette holder and lounging elegantly in his embroidered waistcoat. A wall sign says ne crachez. There is the sound of steam trains. The lobby is quite quiet, and Somerset goes up to the reception and interrogates the receptionist. The receptionist shrugs.
They left Nice yesterday, monsieur.
But where have they gone?
Hotel Monte Carlo.
Monte...
Miss Power's friend, she wants to see the casino.
The receptionist shrugs again and turns away. Somerset looks irritated, sighs, and turns away. William Dyer is walking rapidly through the foyer when he sees Somerset heading towards him.
Dyer, is this you?
Absolutely not.
Are you with Power's party?
Absolutely not.
Do you know where they've gone?
Dyer shrugs.
Absolutely not.
Surely you must have seen them in Nice?
Depends.
On what?
On whether you lend me 500 francs or not.
500? Well, I could find a few francs. But we'll only lend it to you if you leave this place and we go back to the hotel.
He takes Dare's arms and starts to steer him to the door, but Dare shakes him off.
But I want it for the tables.
Doubtless. But I'm not financing your habit.
Somerset looks interrogatively at Dare, who pushes out his lower lip and stares irritatedly at the floor. Somerset shrugs and turns to go. Dare looks up.
Run off after your lady love, then.
Somerset irritably walks away. Dare then walks up to the desk, takes up a telegram slip and writes on it, G. Somerset, Nice, to Miss Power, Grand Hotel, Genoa.
Lost all money at Monte Carlo. I've learned that Captain Distancy returns here tomorrow. Please send £100 by him and save me from disgrace. We'll await him at 11 o'clock and 4 on the Pont Neuf.
Captain Distancy is pacing up and down. He sees Paula enter the alley and comes towards him. Distancy hurries to join her and gives a short military bow. He indicates towards a bench, which she refuses with a curt shake of the head. Paula agitatedly walks off down the alley and Distancy joins her. She stops and turns towards him.
Would you do me a favour, please?
Indeed, Miss Power.
He bows more deeply.
An honour, madam.
She hands him a small bag of money.
Would you please give this to Mr. Somerset on the Pont Neuf tomorrow at either 11 or 4 o'clock?
Mr. Somerset?
Yes. He has money problems.
Somerset raises his eyebrow.
What? Visiting Monte Carlo money problems?
Paula draws herself up, offended.
That will do, Captain.
He bows.
I exist but to serve you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
She puts her head down, nods, and hurries away.
Ah, gambling problems, hey?
He strolls off, tossing the bag of coins in his hand. Distancy strolls along the bridge. He turns around and looks at passers-by on either side. Distancy leans on one elbow on one side of the bridge's railings. Suddenly, a hand is placed firmly on his shoulder. He startles and whips around to see his son, Dare.
Oh, you still here, Will? Look, I have an engagement. You can see me back at the hotel this evening.
I shall fly like a rocket once you have given me the £100, Papa.
Give you?
I keep the appointment instead of the other chap.
But how do you know about this thing?
Dare shrugs and walks off. Distancy pursues him.
Oh, I've seen him.
Distancy grabs Dare's shoulders and regards him steadily.
Will, this is too sudden and too strange.
Are you going to hand over the money or not, Peter?
Distancy walks off and answers over his shoulder.
No, but I am going to make inquiries.
Captain, you are entirely without natural affection.
Dare puts his hand out for the bag and continues pursuing Distancy, who is now marching briskly away.
I promise to deliver this into the hand of the man about whom you obviously know.
Dare swings around and stands directly in Distancy's path, with his hands open his hips.
All right. Look, Peter, if you can just give me £10, I shall pay my rent here and scamper off back home.
Distancy closes his eyes in irritation and slowly shakes his head in pained irritation. He mechanically takes out a £10 note and hands it to his son. Dare snatches the note with a smile and turns to hurry off across the road. He shouts back,
"Thanks, Captain. See you back home."
Distancy is still standing, with Paula, dressed in lacy déshabillé, is lounging on a chaise longue. Charlotte Distancy is seated looking out of the window.
Why did he leave England at all just now? Perhaps it was to see you. He should have waited and not raced off on such a harebrained holiday halfway through the building works.
Distancy comes into the room, holding the bag of money, which he puts onto the table next to Paula. Charlotte comes over and kisses his cheek. Paula smiles and nods at him.
Did you manage your business, Captain?
Yes, but about that other business, Somerset wasn't there.
Did you wait long?
No, that Mr. Dare turned up and told me that Mr. Somerset had gone on to San Remo and could not keep the appointment.
Paula gets up and walks to the window. She looks out with deep disappointment. Distancy bows.
Perhaps we shall see later in the day, ladies?
He turns and walks out.
The man is either addlepated or venal. But what is that to me?
She shakes her head slowly. Paula is standing meditatively picking the base of one of the pillars with her parasol. There are 3 or 4 other people in the cathedral at a distance from her. Distancy moves up to join her. Paula looks up at him briefly.
If it were not for this cathedral, I would not like this city at all. Luckily, we are going to Bard End tomorrow.
Yes, your uncle has asked me to keep you company.
And shall you?
Oh, yes. What better than exploring Europe with friends, including the one we most admire in the world?
That sounds perilously like love-making.
'Tis love indeed.
We are in a cathedral, remember, Captain Distancy, and should not keep up a secular conversation.
The cathedral clock sounds.
There, the clock is striking. My aunt and Charlotte will have seen their little mechanical display by now. Could you please ask them to join me here, as I particularly wish to show them a little jewel of Caravaggio?
Distancy bows.
My pleasure, madam.
He turns and marches off. Paula watches his retreating military form with a somewhat admiring glance.
That was an episode of The Laodicean. I would like to thank the amazing cast for this episode. Caro Joy, Catherine Dyer, Neal Highley, John Simpson, Tony Lee, Scott Monroe, James Heseltine, Jonty O'Callaghan, Jenny Dyer, Stephan, John Seal, Peter Allison, Robin Lee, and Tracy Hays. I would also like to thank our brilliant, patient, and multi-talented editor, David Harris, for all of his hard work and patience on this. The music is from Epidemic Sound and is The English Affair by Howard Harper-Barnes. Anyways, see you next time, gentlefolk.